So I'm bringing you a video today on that absolute monster that was from Southport that's now in Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. It's been released today that he's been charged with a series of new alleged offences that have taken place in 2025. Now, these offences took place whilst he was situated in HMP Belmarsh. Also in this video, I'm going to touch on the cost. So the cost that it's costing to keep him in the psychiatric hospital, Broadmoor. Many people, including families, again, which we'll touch on, are suggesting that he's playing the system. So let's get straight into it then. So again, I'm not going to name him, but this absolute monster has been charged with a series of new alleged offences whilst, as I suggested, serving his prison sentence in HMP Belmarsh during 2025. So according to the Metropolitan Police, the charges relate to three separate incidents. So three separate incidents, and these are not in the space of a week, they're in the space of months. It's just an ongoing problem. So again, three separate incidents that took place during 2025. So, according to Metropolitan Police, this monster was charged on Tuesday the 28th of July with 4 offences. So the charges include assaulting an emergency worker on Tuesday the 6th of May 2025. So let's just think about that for a second. So an emergency worker, this is likely to be somebody medical, an ambulance worker, a doctor, a GP, somebody like that. So he's clearly causing issues and he has no care for absolutely anybody, which we know anyway because of the atrocious crimes that he committed. But it bewilders me that even in prison, after he's committed these crimes, emergency workers are there to help you. And he's allegedly assaulted an emergency worker. Now, second one, attempted GBH, so grievous bodily harm, on Thursday, the 8th of May, 2025. So 6th of May, he attacks an emergency worker. And on the 8th of May, 2 days later, he commits, allegedly, grievous bodily harm. Now, he's also been charged with, on Thursday, the 26th of June, so a month later, unauthorised possession of an offensive weapon in prison. Again, let that sink in. So from the beginning of May into June, he's assaulted an emergency worker, he's caused grievous bodily harm to another person, and he's been found in possession of an offensive weapon. And then on Tuesday the 28th of October, so what's that, a few months later, a second count of an assault on a separate emergency worker. So police have said he is due to appear before Westminster Magistrates Court via video link on Friday the 11th of September. And this is notwithstanding the atrocious crime he committed as he entered HMP Belmarsh. If you remember back, it's alleged, again, that this monster heated water from a kettle before throwing it from his prison cell over a prison officer. Now, of course, the prison officer survived the incident and the investigation is underway into the alleged offence there of grievous bodily harm. In terms of the offensive weapon that this monster was found with, they have not released a statement to state what weapon this would have been. You can only imagine it's something that he's either made up himself in prison from items that he has access to, which he certainly shouldn't, or he's working either in a kitchen or something like that, and he's managed to steal one of these items. Again, these are all things that we can just think and conjure up. No statements have been released to suggest what that offensive weapon was. And again, emergency workers, as I say, they very well could be ambulances, GPs. Not just that, they can include prison officers and prison healthcare staff. And again, these will just be emergency personnel, trying to undertake their duties, trying to do their job. So of course, just to touch briefly on that atrocious crime that he committed in Southport, again, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 52 years. Again, not long enough in my opinion. So to touch on what the families have said, so they are suggesting that this monster, the monster from Southport, is playing the system. So again, with these assaults, with these offences that he's committing in prison, and what the healthcare within the prison service will be doing in terms of his mental health. We've seen of recent have suggested, and he's been moved to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. So Broadmoor itself, I'll touch on this. So Broadmoor, again, is a psychiatric hospital who treat prisoners, who need that psychiatric care that in a normal prison they feel they can't provide. But it's always important to remember that these people still pose a significant risk. So again, under UK law, prisoners can be transferred to psychiatric hospitals if medical specialists determine they require treatment that cannot be adequately provided within the prison system. So what's happened here is he's committed these offences throughout 2025. Again, medical professionals have looked at him. They've probably thought, we can't deal with him here. And so they've escorted him off to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. So is Broadmoor an easier touch than HMP Belmarsh? Well, Broadmoor is not a prison. It's one of the UK's 3 high security psychiatric hospitals where prisoners, so patients, as they like to be known, are admitted for treatment if specialists determine, again, they need the care that can't be provided within a normal prison system. So again, the prisoners remain under extremely tight security and can be transferred back to prison if they no longer require hospital treatment. So again, that's something to take into consideration, that although he's being moved to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, it's not to say that he's going to be there forever, although it's probably now unlikely that he will be moved back to HMP Belmarsh. And if he ever was, this won't be a short stint. It's likely to be years if they are examining him. His mental state is going to be over a number of years. It won't be a short period. So again, I've been reading about critics and I've wrote some things down. So again, critics argue that Broadmoor offers a less punitive environment because patients, again, prisoners, have access to treatment and healthcare rather than living under a traditional prison regime. So it's still a prison, but again, they're going to get that hospital care, let's say. Now, others point out that Broadmoor is not a reward or an early release. It remains one of the most secure psychiatric hospitals in Europe, surrounded by high walls, multiple security layers, and constant monitoring. Now, importantly, this monster's sentence, again, this is important to note, has not changed. So it's still 52 years minimum that applies. Again, if doctors determine he no longer requires treatment in Broadmoor, they can then ship him back off and allow him to serve his sentence in a normal prison. Now, one aspect I wanted to touch on that I found interesting was the mere cost, because to be quite honest, I know that it costs a lot to keep a person in prison, but Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, I wasn't aware of the cost. I want to touch on this for you. So the financial difference, it is significant. So recent reports have estimated that keeping a prisoner in a high security prison such as Belmarsh, so Belmarsh, HMP Belmarsh, where this monster was, costs roughly £60,000 per year. Now again, that's a lot, but it's nothing in comparison to where he's been shipped to. So by comparison, a place in Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital can cost more than £300,000 per year. Now again, they state this is largely because of the intensive psychiatric care, specialist doctors, nursing staff, therapists, and the extra security required inside a high security hospital. So again, they've taken him from HMP Belmarsh, £60,000 per year to keep this monster locked away. And then again, Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, £300,000. That's more than £250,000 per year to keep him in this psychiatric hospital. So again, just some quick maths for you. This means to keep him in Broadmoor, it's costing taxpayers around 5 times more than holding him in a secured prison such as HMP Belmarsh. So again, for these offences, as stated, he's expected to appear before Westminster Magistrates Court by video link on Friday, the 11th of September. At that point, they'll start to move him through the court system. So I want your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tell me, what do you think about this?